Hello, beautiful beings. Welcome back to the channel. I'm very excited for today's interview, so I'm not going to keep you waiting very long before we dive into it. Today, we have Mr. Cal Washington back on for a second interview to discuss the InPower movement, which is something that I know a lot of you participated in last September and got very excited about. So, we're going to be talking about the results of the last round of the InPower movement, the first wave, and then also this upcoming wave that's now beginning, and then some more important points about what this process is and how it works. And we're going to get into the juicy details of all of that. So, with all that being said, Cal, it's great to have you back on the show, my friend. Thank you for being here today.
I'm honored to be here, Aaron. I look forward to this, and I'm see what unfolds here because it's always you never know where this is going to go. So it's I look forward to it.
An unfolding mystery indeed.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who may not know, Cal is the creator of what I believe is the most powerful law movement that I've seen for getting true remedy from the injustice in our current society. And that movement is called the InPower movement. And so, first, Cal, I want to talk about what you've been doing with InPower and sort of like how you're able to do what you're doing. But for those of you who missed our first interview with Cal from a few months ago, where we kind of broke this news about this movement and explained how it works, I'll try to summarize briefly for you. InPower is a movement that includes hundreds and even thousands of people at this point who are using affidavits and notices of liability to hold our, let's call them insincere public servants, accountable for their actions under the law. So it's a lawful way for people to keep our public servants accountable by essentially saying, hey, you're supposed to be serving the highest good of the public, and yet the things you're doing are actively causing harm to the public. So here's a bunch of notices that we, the people, hundreds of us, thousands of us, are going to hold you accountable under the law. Would you say that's an accurate assessment, Cal?
Yeah, pretty much. I would say it's under commercial law or law merchant. That's so it has to deal with money. All the bad things in the world that are happening, if you want to, look at things as bad and good. But all the things that we don't like are driven by money.
Right.
And so that's the root of how they're able to get these things to happen. And so we have to deal with them at that level, at a money level.
Mm-hmm. And my followers are mostly familiar with that idea because I've done a lot of videos on common law and explaining admiralty law and how our country's been kind of hijacked by this commercial jurisdiction of contract law that's pretending to be a Republican form of government. And we kind of have this wool pulled over our eyes and we don't know it. And that wool is the commercial system. But what I really enjoy about your teaching of this is that you give a unique take on this that I haven't heard anywhere else, which is the concept of the law merchant. So can you quickly explain what that is and how it ties into the InPower movement?
So the admiralty has to do with shipping. Like if you think in terms of
Mhm.
on the water, like waters. So they were shipping goods, shipping people, whatever it was. But those goods came from the land and then
Right.
went back to the land. And who was sending and who was receiving were merchants. So it's not a law of the sea. So they've allowed us to think about the law of the sea, but they've really hidden this commercial jurisdiction that's on the land, and it's called law merchant. And
Mm,
it's the root of it because the merchants were doing transactions long before they had big enough boats to actually go international. So they would just do it by
right.
walking, yeah,
Makes sense.
caravans and yeah. So all that was already in place, and that's the part they're hiding from us because that's where the real remedy is. If you
Mhm.
understand that law merchant is still alive and well, and that you've been turned into a merchant with your birth certificate
Mhm.
situation. So they the merchants were able to the main differences between admiralty and law merchant because they did overlap, and there was always this tug
Yeah,
and
yeah.
war about like who was adjudicating what. And so depending on where you were, admiralty could end up coming on the land and law merchant could end up on the boats. So and they had these staple courts in England. So there were staple towns, and that's where a lot of goods went in and out because they were port towns. So there's where the rub really was. So you had the common law, the king's courts, you
Hmm.
had the admiralty courts, and then you had these staple courts or pie power courts that were run by the merchants, and they were kind of autonomous to all countries' laws and kind of had their own
Ah.
little thing going on. And
Mm.
there was this nod, nod, wink, wink, and they were also a caste. So they were a class of people like nobles or clergy or
Yeah.
royals.
Your
There was the
merchants.
merchant class, and so you had to be born into it. You couldn't aspire to be a
Hmm.
merchant. You had to be from
Yep.
one of the merchant families.
That's true of all elite categories, right? Nobles, princes, serfs, lords.
Exactly. So a lot of people have heard about these banking families, and you can probably name 13 of them, and
Hmm.
those are actually merchant families going way
Wow.
back. So
It makes sense.
yeah, and all they did was take the whole nudge, nudge, wink, wink, let's write pieces of paper and turn them into money
Yeah.
into a global banking system, all based on these pieces of paper that are debt.
Ah. So, like back in the days of the Silk Road, for example,
Mhm.
trade was done. That'd be a law merchant, travel road. This was before banks really existed.
Yes,
So merchants were like the pre-bankers or the
yes,
predecessor to bankers.
yes. The more I study this and I study the instruments, it becomes clear that these instruments were not being paid, or a majority of them, because it couldn't have been practical. So we're either lied about travel, the way they could travel, or
Hmm.
communication. Because if they're on foot or on like horseback, which is on foot, in order to have these bills of exchange, especially international, being paid, you'd spend all your time just going to get paid.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't, there's something missing. We're either lied about, the communication at the time or the travel at the time, or we're lied about that these things were actually being paid.
Hmm.
So the merchants started to figure this out, that, I'm writing these credit notes, and yet it seems to just go out into the world, and people are transacting with it. It never comes back. I never pay for it.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, how many times we can do this? And we're all nudge,
Yeah.
nudge, winking and writing notes to each other. And then it goes out into the normal classes of people. And we all look, oh yeah, that's a rich guy. He's good for it. I'll
Uh-huh.
I'll take this
Uh-huh.
as payment, which is what we're happening now with a $20 bill. Yeah, it's a $20 bill. It's from the government, but you can't go and get paid with this thing.
Yeah. It's worth nothing.
No. So so they took that whole merchant thing on the instruments, turned it into banking and made it way bigger, turned us all into merchants so that we're writing all this paper, and they collected it all. And then they took the money off of gold even so that you can't even pay. And then they're just like, oh yeah, send us the paper. And the bank
Hmm.
account, the banks just keep going up, 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 up. So that's the scam. That's why they don't want you even knowing about law merchant, because once you see into that, you're seeing into the behind the curtain kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, you're blowing my mind in real time. This is fun. I have not, I've never connected those pieces you just connected. The tricky part for me has been the difference between admiralty maritime and law merchant, understanding that. But I think what you just laid out makes a lot of sense in that the water jurisdiction is really when you're in the act of doing business, right? Negotiating, trading, traveling. And then at some point, the business is transacted and there's an exchange that happens. And that once the business is done and the exchange happens, we move into law merchant. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yes. Because
I
all the
get it.
goods came from the land, got on a boat, and then there's rules about boating, and
Right.
that's where all the bottomry bonds, and you have to bond the crew and the captain, and you had bills of lading to show what was on the boat when it left.
Right.
That should match when you get to the other side, and why didn't it? And you had pirates out there, and then you had licensed pirates out there. It was a
Licensed pirates.
dude, they were called privateers.
Wow. I've heard that term.
A privateer is a pirate who is allowed to pirate,
Like hired by somebody.
normally government. So a cut
Yeah.
was going back to wherever they came from. And the real pirates, like the Pirates of the Caribbean, were the guys who were just like, I'm not giving you a cut. I'm just going to take stuff.
Yeah.
But others were taking stuff in the same fashion, but they were giving a cut back to somebody else. So they had a license to steal.
Right. Yeah, we think about those days, the Pirates of the Caribbean days, like the world governments were at odds and are enemies with the pirates, and they're always going to battle with each other. But really, they were just going to battle because the pirates weren't letting in the governments on the cut, right?
Exactly.
Just give us some of your money, and you can keep stealing from our people all you want. We don't care.
Exactly. So when a boat leaves, what happened to the boat? Oh, pirates. What pirates? You see what happens when there's no way to know that that boat is going to get there with that crew and that captain.
Hmm.
The boat itself could disappear.
Right.
And then it's like, well, what happened? I don't know. Somebody's got to insure all this. That's where all the bonds and the insurance companies popped up, and that whole thing started to
Oh
blossom.
man, I just saw a huge parallel here. So the same thing we're describing with pirates and being hired by governments to go pillage ships in the ocean and stuff. Whenever there's an outlet where resources are being exchanged at a high rate, the bad guys are going to get involved, right? They're going to find a way to profit from that and steal it and hijack it. And it's really no different than what we've seen happening at our border with the open border policy and all the trafficking of children and drugs coming in. We now see at this point, it's obvious our government is complicit in this trafficking, aiding and abetting it and actually assisting it. And that's
Yes.
because trafficking is a huge business and the government doesn't actually care about it to like in terms of protecting us from it. They want to make money off of it. So they just got to the point where they're like, we're just going to monetize this directly ourselves.
Yeah. That and drugs is like that and everything else. Like
Yep.
it's always been like this. In
Yeah.
Canada, where I live, the first governor here was the governor of the Hudson Bay Company. It was a for-profit corporation, had a monopoly. It was very clear that's what it was. They weren't
Hmm.
even hiding it back then.
Yeah.
The first governor was a cousin of the king at the time. He had been banished for whatever. I've never been able to figure that out. But he was a privateer and a slave trader. That's the first governor. How do you think, and a bunch of his friends, how do you think things went? Pillage, rob, steal, kill, destroy is
Hmm.
what that's his life. That's who he is. And so that's who's governing the whole thing called, it was Rupert's Land at the time, but it was turned into Canada. They
Hmm.
were allowed to make their own laws. They had use of the Royal Navy, all the army, the cannons at their forts. It's like a pirate is running things.
Right. That's the unfortunate situation we find ourselves in is that we live in a world where those kind of people have risen to power. And there's nothing conspiratorial about this. We've seen it happen all throughout history that people that innately hunger for power will find a damn way to get it. And they'll do
Yes.
anything they need to do to get it. And while you're at home with your family living a good life, they're out there slaving away to find their power. And then by the time they get it, they pretend to be, oh, I'm here on behalf of the people. And we just watch the TV. Oh, cool. New president got elected or whatever. And we're none the wiser to what's really happening behind the curtain in our world. But here's how we can see behind the curtain is that if we have any problem believing that extremely wealthy people, call them elites, whatever you want to call them, if we have any trouble believing that those people have the moral bankruptcy to do these really awful things that we're talking about, that we've seen happen in the world, create crises to profit from, then all we have to do is look at our dense urban cities and look at how the poorest amongst us behave. And what we've seen in these dense urban cities since they've lifted all the crime restrictions is this overwhelming explosion of crime where you can't even go to San Francisco anymore because your car's going to get smashed and grabbed. You can't walk into an Apple store because someone's probably going to rob it in 30 minutes. Like it's dangerous to be out in the public in these cities because so much crime is rampant everywhere. And so are you telling me that those poor people who are stealing an iPhone from the Apple store and Target and whatnot wouldn't do the same awful things that the elite billionaires do with their money to gain more of it? We're seeing it happen right in front of us. So it's not a rich people problem. It's a human problem. It's a consciousness problem. It's a spiritual problem, ultimately.
Yes. And they've done studies where people who are like considered sociopaths or even psychopaths, they gravitate towards the power positions,
Of course.
and they are ruthless
Hmm.
to get there. So you're go the fact that we have these sort of, top-down governments, they're going to be attracted to those spots. They like to be
Yeah.
in those positions. And even in the entertainment industry, it's the same kind of thing. It's look at me, I want, like
Right.
it, so you end up attracting people who are not of the normal. Like they have
Yeah.
yeah, there's an issue with them, and those type of people gravitate towards those positions. So
Yeah.
you're going to have a higher a percentage of that in those positions, and it's clear that that's what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is why we haven't seen many, if any, enlightened beings running for positions of power in our world, because enlightened beings don't want positions of power. They want to serve humanity. But I think we are going to start seeing and kind of are seeing a shift towards more beings of true light who actually want to run for these positions now, not to weaponize the power, but to save the people from the power being weaponized. And we see like an RFK Jr. figure, for example, is to me a huge leap forward in terms of the quality of candidates for president. And I think he's the clarion call of this new wave that we're going to start seeing in our world of very spiritually enlightened people that are genuinely authentic, running for big positions in office, because now there's actually like an important reason to do so, right?
Yeah, definitely. No, it's great to see. I don't know. It's a big monster, and it's like trying to, add your teaspoon to the ocean. But
Yeah.
uh, at least it's something. Don't just sit back and do nothing. Like I applaud anybody that's going to try and do anything really.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Agreed. I'd say to my friends all the time in the common law space that I don't vote for presidents. I don't believe in voting in that sense. But if I saw a candidate that I thought truly had a chance to make it into office, like an RFK Jr., who really is truly going to make huge changes and wants to at least hold that position, if for no other reason than to protect the public from a bad person holding it and weaponizing it. But not only that, but to use it for good. It's like, look, we're stuck with this faulty system, whether we like it or not. I know Canada's a bit different, but we're stuck with this faulty system. And while we're stuck with it, we might as well try to use it for the light rather than just let it be used by the darkness. So I might actually, put in my voter registration and vote if that happened.
Wow.
And then cancel it, of course, right away.
Yeah.
But just because I think
No,
there's nuance to this.
yeah, I don't agree that we're stuck with this thing. I think I think the whole thing is by claim, and we're not claiming our rightful position in this thing. And I
Certainly.
think I think we can turn the tables on this from a spiritual level because we do have the highest claim. We're just not
Yeah,
acting like that. So,
that's true.
when InPower is built to, help create that, or help transition it at
Mhm.
least. And so, yeah, I think it's all a money-based system. Like money is what's driving
No
everything.
doubt.
And once we deal with the money and balance that, who has the
Yeah.
money, because whoever has the money is really in control of what's happening in the earth
Yep.
at this point, because it's just the way it's structured. And so we need to correct that and get the balance back to the people, and we can do that with money. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's the difficult part about this kind of game we're playing. And we'll transition now into this question of like, how do we hold these people accountable that we're talking about? But this is the challenge of the game we're playing is it's like we're all sitting at this Monopoly board playing Monopoly, and the consequences are very dire to losing this game. You're going to go to prison, you're going to be poor and destitute. And we're all trying to play this game to survive, but we see a few guys in the corner with a monopoly money printing machine just printing off stacks upon stacks of money, and they're just buying up all the properties. And we're like, hey, they're cheating. And then we get censored and kicked off Instagram and stuff. Like that's kind of the world we're living in, where to even call out what's happening is not allowed on most public platforms. And on top of that, we're playing with cheaters who are printing infinite money and hoarding it all to themselves. And so even though the wealth is imagined and fake in every way. It's not real wealth in that sense. It's being weaponized against humanity because we're kind of forced to play this stupid, unwinnable game that we no longer want to play. So, like, how does InPower step in and begin creating change in such a kind of dire situation that we're in?
Well, going back to the law merchant thing, and then and it was a caste, so it was you had to be of a certain family. Well, so only those that small group were able to write these things called bills of exchange and promissory notes, which were credit notes, really,
Right.
pieces of paper that represented, a payment in at a later date,
Mm-hmm.
but they just
Promise
kept
to
putting
pay.
them out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's promised to pay. So they kept putting them out, and only they could put them out. What they did in order to expand this was to give us the birth certificate name and then turn us into merchants. And so what's bantered around the freedom movements or whatever is that we're turned into a corporation. But it's if you think in
Yeah.
terms of we're turned into a merchant, it's much closer to the truth, and you'll
Yeah.
start to see it for what it is. So now you can write these things. And that's why when you go to get a mortgage, the first thing they do is say, "Can you sign this promissory note?"
Yeah.
Well, guess what? You weren't allowed to sign promissory notes in the Middle Ages.
Hmm. Because you couldn't
Not
buy
like that.
property.
Yeah. So they turn that into money because now you're a merchant. I see you're a merchant. You got a merchant number, your SSN, and you have a birth certificate, and there's a
Mhm.
trust behind you. So I feel safe.
You're a
Just
registered merchant.
exactly. So now you've just created money, and then they lend you the money back, and then they want it all back plus
Yeah.
extra for interest. So they just turned that whole thing into a bigger way of creating way more wealth for themselves. That said, because my signature can create that wealth for you, it can also create the wealth for me.
Right.
And you can't say that it can't because this is your system is based on it.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is calling out the perpetrators of certain agendas and saying, if you don't stop doing what you're doing, I'm going to charge you X amount of dollars per day, and I'm going to send you bills of exchange. And as soon as my signature hits that piece of paper, it's money instantly.
Yeah.
And everybody goes, "How are you going to collect from them?" I don't have to collect from them. The bill is the money in their system.
Yeah. It's like a check. You can go
Yeah.
cash it in.
Well, I don't have to cash it in. It is the money.
Hmm. Or like you
So
can use
I
it to buy something, discharge something.
exactly. So of course they've made the system so nobody recognizes it.
Yeah.
They will only recognize certain things, right? So
Yeah.
but the actual law of it and how they've amassed wealth is they're collecting all these things that normally wouldn't pass around in the open market, like with us peons, right? So
Hmm.
but it is money nonetheless because they've deemed it so and put it in statutes and all kinds of things. So all we have to do is now take these bills of exchange, turn them into something else that people can spend with, and crypto is the most obvious thing to do
Right.
because we can distribute all that wealth back to the people.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that's a whole nother problem with the big investors getting involved now, trying to swallow up all the Bitcoin. But we won't get into that. It's a different topic. But there is a solution there potentially. For those people who may not be familiar with the idea of money being fake, and what do you mean, Cal? How can you just create money on a promissory note by signing it? Doesn't there have to be an equivalent store of gold bars to back up that money somewhere?
Traditionally, there was till 1933.
Yeah.
And they said, we're taking money off gold. There is no way to pay for any of these instruments. So they could just write instruments till they were blue in the face.
Hmm.
But we can too.
Yeah, that's the hard part for people to digest is like you
Yes,
can create money out of thin air. In fact, you're doing it all the time. You just don't know you're doing it.
exactly. And they're taking the advantage of it. So all I try to teach is like you're doing it anyway. You're like check your signature because you're probably creating money.
Yeah.
I mean, I can show you in the Bills of Exchange Act, a blank piece of paper with a signature on it can be turned into a bill of exchange. In other words, the person who gets that can write in whatever amount they want, payable to whoever they want, and it becomes money instantly. Your signature is money.
Because they took it off gold. So now they can't complain that you can't make up something out of thin air that is a hard asset. Well, that's why they took it off the hard asset. So they could make it up out of thin air. And then that
Exactly.
fuels their game of printing endless monopoly money because they basically gave us, making us merchants at birth, like you said. They made us like kings, but told us we were paupers. And then they're using our kingly power against us because we're naive to it. And they're profiting from that power.
Exactly. So all you have to do is wake up to what's actually happening and then go, well, if I'm writing them for them, why can't I write them for what I want in the world
Mm-hmm.
instead of them and their and all their rituals and their child trafficking and their drugs and
Mm-hmm.
their all this debauchery.
God knows what else.
Yeah, I'm funding that. No,
Yeah.
I don't want to fund that anymore. I would rather fund this over here.
Yeah.
And so that's all we need to do. And there's nothing they can do about it because we're following the rules.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we have no reason to deny this anymore that we've just seen these two wars in the last few years where we're sending, I think the United States has sent like $300 billion to Israel and Ukraine, maybe 400 billion, for these foreign proxy wars too. I think there's been over 400,000 deaths in the Ukraine war, Ukrainian deaths. And then there's another 200,000 for the Russians. I mean, that's, 600,000 plus people have died in this war that you paid for with your
Yes.
taxes. Like, does that feel good when you go to sleep at night? Because I don't think it does. But most
No.
people just don't really take the time to understand that this is the inconvenient truth that your tax money is being sent for proxy wars to make bankers rich while young men die.
Yes. And the Vietnam War was where that really started to be revealed.
Right.
And JFK started pulling out of that because once he saw what was really going on, and also started printing um, money backed by silver again because he also saw that everything that I explained. He
Yep.
When he got there, he's like, "What is this?"
Yeah, this is all messed
Didn't
up.
Yeah, didn't know who to trust, like
Yeah.
because it's so insidious. And so he realized what Vietnam was, and he also realized that the money situation is out of control. It's not even Americans that are printing the money for America.
Yeah.
Like they're getting the benefit of it. It's
Yeah.
it's bad. So these merchant families have literally taken over every government. The only governments they haven't taken over are called the axis of evil or the terrorists
Hmm.
because they don't have a central bank in there and they don't have control of the money supply.
You mean like the Middle East countries?
Yeah.
Uh,
Every country that's considered terrorist, you look not hooked up to the banking system.
oh, how convenient.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
And
So
Gaddafi
then,
started running gold on money on gold as well, and everybody was prospering in his country. Well, we can't have that.
mhm.
So everything is about money, everything.
Yeah,
And so we have to understand that that's the underlying game here, or the underlying jurisdiction
right.
that, and unless you're playing at that level, they don't pay attention to you.
Hmm.
You can go out and protest, you can sign petitions, you can even go to court if you want. They got the court completely controlled.
Hmm. Yeah. So then is that how InPower steps in to make remedy? Is it like exposing the financial penalties of these crimes that public servants are committing?
We impose the penalties
Yeah.
because we end up in a negotiation, a contractual negotiation with them because they're deploying these weapons using commercial means.
Hmm.
5G is weapon grade stuff. Anybody that touches it knows. Like this can kill.
Yeah.
It can alter oxygen where you cannot breathe.
Yeah.
Like, uh,
We have a lot of studies on this actually by now.
yeah. But do you notice? Watch a sports thing. 5G, get on our
Hmm.
five. Oh, woo, woo, woo. Oh, this is great. Oh, they're selling it,
Yeah.
but it's a weapon.
Kind of
So
like something else.
exactly. Come and get your donut.
Come and get the weapon. Oh, I mean the yeah.
Yeah, and then you can hug your grandma, and they got these ads that, oh, this is so, oh, you're doing such a good, oh, you're such a good person. It's all sales technique. It's
Hmm.
all advertising. So it's commercial in scope, but it's weapons in actuality. So we can deal with them on the commercial end. That's all it is. Because they've decided to move these weapons using commercial, getting our agreement. Okay, if you have to get my agreement, I don't agree. And if you keep putting them in here, I'm going to charge you.
Yeah.
Do we have a deal?
Yeah.
If you go silent, like you were relying on, then you have agreed.
Yeah.
And then we start creating these bills of exchange. Tell me they're not money. Tell me.
Yeah.
What? Give me one politician that says this is not money, and you've just exposed the whole worldwide system because
It's true.
it's based on it.
Yeah.
There's nothing they can do because this is their system that we're now. Revelation 18 says, "Take the cup that they've been giving you, fill it double, and hand it back." That's what we're
Hmm.
doing.
I
We're
love that
we're,
verse.
we're taking the tail of the snake and putting it in the mouth so it eats itself.
Oh, that's such a great analogy. Yeah, you're just using the same corrupt rules against them that they've been using against you.
Exactly.
And this is the case of human nature, right? Is no thief likes to be stolen from, no murderer wants to be murdered, no abuser wants to be abused. And yet you have to show them the error of their ways so that they will change their ways. And so what we're doing here is not this like, well, I hate you, so I'm coming to get you. No,
No,
it's like this is unjust and unrighteous. And so I'm going to flip it back on you so you can experience how it feels. And then you may
ex
come to my side over here.
exactly. This is exactly what we're doing. And if you stop the behavior, I will just tear up the bills.
Yeah. It can all just go away.
Way, exactly.
I love it.
So I've got the bills, and all I got to do is this, that, and you're free. But
Okay, so
I'm not gonna let you poison my children or my grandchildren.
yeah, I'm with you on that, man. Every day I look up in the sky here in Austin, and it's just a grid of crisscross pattern of chemtrails. And I'm like, I didn't consent to this. I never agreed that I wanted my sky to be sprayed with these chemicals. Like something about it is inherently feels unjust. And so that's why I was so excited when I heard about your InPower movement because I understood these principles of like, we can hold these people accountable. We're not without power. I
Yeah,
just don't know personally exactly how to do that. And so I've been waiting for somebody to come along. And then, of course, you came along last year. I think you started 2 years ago, actually, with InPower, but I heard about it last year and kind of watched this first wave. And I want to talk about some of the results now of what you guys accomplished in the last wave that I believe started in September. Is that right?
yeah.
So tell me how that went.
It went really well. We're still compiling all the data because it's a lot
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
but we had a lot of people step down. So it commensurate with, the percentages. It seems like, the more people do it, the more people step down.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but we had some notables, um, three premiers in Australia, and then just a couple of weeks ago, the previous prime minister, he was prime minister during COVID, he stepped down. He was still in government. He left. And the biggest one is a royal, and that's the Queen of Denmark. She got 14 notices of liability and abdicated the throne on New Year's Eve.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So when you hit a royal, that's that's big.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like in
That,
chess, I just took your queen.
yeah, it's
Wow.
like that. They don't flinch. And the Denmark people are really surprised, shocked, as a matter of fact, because her mantra was, "I will never abdicate the throne. I will be here until I die." And they all liked her. Like she was a likable. So they were like, What do you mean you're abdicating the throne?
Yeah.
That was your thing."
Yeah. Non-abdication. And now you're abdicating.
Yeah. On New
Well,
Year's
what
Eve,
was it that she was held liable for? Do you know?
she had 10 on the smart meters and 4 on vaccinations.
Oh,
14 people
okay.
sent to her. Yeah.
Pushing vaccines on the public and all that.
Yeah.
Mhm. Great.
So yeah, so that was a big one. We've had lots of CEOs, uh, utility commissioners. Yeah, it's staggering how many people have stepped down.
Wow. the premiers in Australia, I'm not sure how Australia's government form works, but what would a premier be likened to from America's government standpoint? Like a
It would be like
senator or
it would be like a state governor. Like they have Australia is like a
oh,
continent, and then they have four or five different provinces, for lack of a better word.
okay.
Um, but they're really kind of like autonomous countries, similar to the United States. So it'd be like
Yeah.
a state, the governor of a state stepping down.
Wow. So
And
for
we've
those of
had
you in America, three governors in Australia step down.
and we had governors in the United States step down as well.
No way. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I can. I can. I just got a partial list. So governor of the state of Hawaii, governor of state of Arizona.
You mean Katie Hobbs?
It says Douglas Anthony for Arizona,
Okay.
Massachusetts, Charles Dwayne Baker, um,
What was the governor's name in
Hawaii,
Arizona?
Douglas Anthony, aka Doug Jr. Ducey.
Okay. Let me
Um,
see what his position was. Ducey, 23rd governor of Arizona from 2015 to 2023.
yeah. Well, he got notices liability. He's on our list.
Amazing.
Yeah. And then in Hawaii, it's David Utaka Iggy or something like that. Then we have New York State Public Service Commission, John B. Rhodes. It just goes on and on and on and on.
Amazing.
Um, yeah,
I,
people in
I'm
Ireland, England, Australia, Denmark.
so because this is a global movement, not just an American or Canadian movement.
Yeah,
Because this law merchant form operates, would you say, in virtually every country in the world?
every country in the world.
Wow.
It's all everything is money. There's no country that doesn't use money.
Right. True.
Most of the countries are registered at the U.S. SEC as corporations, and
Yeah.
yeah, so or there or some other kind of banking thing. Most of the EU is all registered as shareholders of the European Investment Bank, and then that investment bank is registered at the U.S. SEC.
Yeah. It's all
Yeah,
tied
so
in.
it's all there. It's all one big thing, except for a
Hmm.
few countries that are still holding out.
Yeah. So then can you talk about how you guys accomplish this process? What do the steps look like for those people listening who are like, I've heard enough. I'm ready to join. Like, how do I join the movement? What does it look like to join the movement? And what do the steps kind of consist of?
Well, joining the movement, there's like a yearly fee or a monthly fee. It's really low. We're not in it. This is not a money making thing. We're not trying to get numbers of
Hmm.
numbers. We're trying to get people to send the documents. So that's our goal. That's our calling.
And you guys do an insane amount of work processing all these papers
Yeah.
and data, and it's incredible to me what you guys are doing.
Yeah, and it's all on mostly volunteer. So it's incredible what's happening. And so yeah, we've compiled an automated system to so you can vet your we can vet your respondent for you, make sure that they're proper for the agenda.
Which is so great.
Yeah, because we had a lot of that. We went through a lot. We learned a lot the hard way. So,
Mhm.
so we've got it pretty much down now. And so we vet your respondent. Once you're ready to go, you put your respondents in. They'll have a number. It automatically goes into your document in the right spots with the right address. No corrections because we had a lot of that. People just making mistakes. And then you got to do a notice of
Mhm.
correction and all that. So in order to do this en masse, we wanted to have like as few problems as possible. So your documents emailed to you. You get two witnesses, two of your friends or two whoever,
Mhm.
and you get your affidavit notarized, and then you mail it. And
Mhm.
the people are having incredible experiences especially on that first mailing. It's like
Mhm.
everybody has something a little bit different, but there's a an actual tangible
Yeah.
feeling you get
I
as
know
you
the
walk.
feeling.
Yeah, when you walk into that post office, it's like, whoa, that I just something just happened here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's tangible. It's really a cool thing. And yeah, so and that's all it is. Then it's a round after that, and then another round. Now you've got a contract because it's
Yeah.
3 rounds, and then you can start billing. And we have a system now where we can bill forever. So we can just keep churning out the things that like how they've been churning out pieces of paper called
Yeah.
money. We just churn,
We can
churn.
do it too.
Yep.
Crank that machine.
Yeah. So we just crossed over 3 billion, I think, this week.
Wow. In terms of what bonds or like what do you call it? Consider
Bills
them?
of bills of exchange, yeah,
Yeah.
altogether. And that's only a couple hundred people, maybe 500 people sending. And it's increasing, like it's going up exponentially. So we will hit we will hit into the trillions fairly shortly. I would,
Wow.
yeah, where it starts to just really go up.
Yeah.
And this is not something they can ignore.
To say the least.
It's like a herd of elephants. You cannot pretend it's not coming because it's
Yeah.
going to come and knock down your house of cards.
Yeah.
And there's nothing they can do about it. It's completely decentralized. You can't blow up Building 7 to get rid of all the paper.
Hmm.
It's everywhere.
Nice. I love that. But my question is, so is what happens like you hold the Queen of Denmark. I'm holding you responsible or liable for $50 million. And then she just steps down to have to avoid having to pay that. Otherwise, if she were to fight you, she'd have to go to court and prove that she didn't cause harm and risk actually having to pay 50 million. So she says it's just easier to me to just get out of here than to risk having to pay this.
Well, it's more like in the contract. Once you understand contracts, part of the contract is they can't take it to court.
Oh,
Remember how they had, oh, Pfizer, yeah, you can't sue them in a court. They just said you can't sue them in a court.
right.
We just did the same thing. You can't bring it into a court.
Oh, because you got them under contract because of three
Yes.
non-responses.
Yes. They could have easily crossed that bit out, changed it to, yeah, well, we'll have a court of California or whatever, and sent it back.
Okay.
They could have negotiated this. They didn't.
They always ignore.
No, you get the pat responses. There's no basis in law for what you're doing, and then the odd time we write back to a lawyer, there's no such thing as law merchant. Oh, really? Why does it say law merchant in the UCC? Sorry that they didn't
Ouch.
teach you this in law school, but that's not my problem. That's your
Yeah, for
problem.
real. So then how do you hold them liable then if like I'm imagining no one's paid any of you in this movement anything,
If
but
they
there's
paid, they would be off. They could continue this because we're saying if you
right.
keep doing this, you're going to. So if they did pay, they could literally lawfully get away with what they're doing,
Right.
but they don't pay. But the bill is the money.
Hmm.
And that's the part I have to repeat and repeat and repeat. And I
It's
know
it's
why. Because
tough to get that.
our heads just don't understand that. Like because
Yeah.
we were never taught it. So the
Yeah.
bill is the money. It's just a form we're not used to.
So how would you use one of those bills to buy something or discharge something? Do you do
I
that?
can, I can't because the system is built against that.
Oh,
So
because
when
they
I
just
when
won't
I
let
was
you.
owed when I was owed 300 million, all their actions told me they owed me 300 million. Like it was
Oh yeah.
obvious they were running like bugs.
Yeah.
But could I get that into a bank or into the banking system? Nope. 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 Doors were all closed. But that's before or just at the beginnings of Bitcoin.
Hmm.
So this is going back 15, 18 years. And now we can take all of these things, add them all together, like the 3 billion that we have now, and give it back to the people in a crypto form.
How?
Because anybody can start a crypto. They've
Oh,
they've
start a
they
crypto.
yeah. We can have our own crypto
Hmm.
based on these, and the crypto would go up in value because the bills go up in value every day. There's a daily fee, $20,000, $20,000, $20,000,
Hmm.
$20,000. And so that's
Oh,
accruing. Yeah. It's it's taking their whole banking system and making them look like paupers, making like you guys are beginners. You're in the little leagues.
you guys think
This
you
is
can print money? Just watch how we do
watch
it.
this.
Yeah.
Hold my beer.
My, how the tables have turned, my friend.
Yes. We'll show you how to do your little scam
Yeah, wow. But I still don't get it totally because how are you going to actually hold them liable if you can't go to court? You know what I mean?
because it's happening in Law Merchant. I'm able to legally, lawfully create bills.
Hmm.
If I write a bill to somebody, like if I write a bill to you with no and there's no premise to it, that's a fraud. Now I'm
Right.
like, yeah. But see, we have created the step by step, got them into an agreement with this, the same way they got us
Yeah.
into agreement with the smart meters and the 5G and the spraying and the vaccines.
Hmm.
We're doing the exact same thing. So they can't say that they weren't notified. They can't say that they didn't
Right.
have a chance to answer because we gave them three shots at it.
Hmm. So then maybe this is a better way to ask my question. You guys are getting a lot of people to step down. It's clear. Why aren't they just ignoring all your letters and presentments and just continuing their reign of terror unfettered? Why do they actually step down?
Because the bill is real to them. They understand what I'm saying.
Okay.
So there's a like this is a negotiable instrument that I could give to somebody, like in exchange it for something, and now they're the creditor on this.
The holder in due course.
Yes. Now, say for instance, because these are all in American dollars worldwide. Say for instance, the IRS got a hold of it. Could they collect?
They would.
They could. That's what scares these people. There's these pieces of paper out in the world, and I don't know who's going to end up with them, and I don't like it.
But it has my name on it. Nah, I get it. So it's a huge
So
liability, in other words.
liability, notice of liability.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. So
Yeah.
it's having these pieces of paper out there in the world, and it could end up in somebody who knows how to collect, like has can go into a bank account and just whoosh.
Wow.
So they don't, and because they're negotiable like a $20 bill, you don't know who's going to end up with it.
Yeah.
That's what scares them.
Okay. And you
They
guys
understand
keep,
this. Yeah. And we can just keep billing. Yeah.
yeah, because these are based on real, like uniform commercial code penalties, right? Like $20 a day for if I accuse you of committing a felony or something, and I've noticed you three times, you haven't responded. Now I got you under contract, and every day that you now refuse to acknowledge this contract or pay the fines is another 20,000, another 20,000. So these are like lawful fines that you're charging people. You're not just making it up out of nowhere.
No. The fee is agreed to on in the first contract. I'm going to charge you $20,000 a day. Do we have a
Mhm.
deal? If you go silent, then you've agreed.
Yeah.
So that it's not, we don't, you can't just change the fee. And it's locked in, through our system. So we just do all the math for you and we just keep sending you bills. You
Yeah.
sign, like they have nothing to do with us. We're just printing them for you. They're not legal or lawful or negotiable until your signature hits it.
Yeah.
And then you hold it.
And maybe it has a lot to do with how many people are notifying them. Because if it was just one person who sent them this notice of liability process, they probably would just ignore it. But if you got 14, 20, 100 people saying, I know to hold you liable, all of a sudden you're like, I better cut my losses.
Yeah, and you can start to see the bills add up. They add up very quickly. You
Hmm.
get into millions almost on your second month.
Yeah.
So, and you have 10 people doing it. Now, that's tens of millions every month coming at you. And you can go and talk to, like a royal would have information at the highest level of what's really going on. Like, what is this? And I need to know.
Yeah.
And yeah, so they're not going to be lied to. They're going to get the goods. Yeah, those are bills of exchange. And yes, those are real.
Hmm.
What do you mean they're real? They're real. Like they fall in under the definition. What did they do? Okay, they did this administrative process. Yeah, that's real too.
That's lawful.
We do we do it all the time.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this then, because you said it's in the contract that you can't take it to court, but you guys aren't writing that in, are you?
Yep.
Yeah. Why do you write that in? Why not say I will take this to court if you don't pay up?
Because the courts are corrupt.
True, but people still do get, remedy in court pretty often.
We want to deal with hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
Of that, if there's two people who can't do it and there's a ruling against it saying that's all bunk, that will spread through their media machine like crazy.
Makes sense. Oh yeah, for
Right?
sure.
We need to keep people out of that arena because they can't. There's a few who can, but most are would be not very functional in there, and then some would be totally dysfunctional.
Yeah. Well, what if, let's say, we have like, 100 people or something who are holding some public servant accountable, let's say a governor of a state, and they decide they've all done the administrative process, he's ignored it, and they say, we're going to file a class action lawsuit against you so that the 100 of us now are like one entity suing you. And then that goes into a court hearing where the 100 of us can show our documents of we all notified this person 3 times that they were committing harm against us. He did not respond. He did not comply. So how is a judge going to possibly rule against the people in that case?
Well, number one is we've already done that. This is a judicial. It's not judicial, but it's an administrative process.
Right.
The judgment's already there. We call it a true bill. That's an indictment.
Wow.
We don't need their courts. We can do it's of the people for the people.
Yeah.
It's always been like that. We've relied on them as like, oh, we got to go over to this building because there's some guy in a black robe that understands this
Hmm.
better than I do. No, we don't need them. It's
Yeah.
we can do it out here. We're already got the judgment, so we don't need to go in there.
Yeah. I guess I'm still just like attached to the idea that we could like do this process against the CEO of Pfizer and then actually make him pay all the money and have to crumble the business?
Yeah, I'm gonna say it again. I'm gonna have to say it again. The bill is the money. It's not. Why would I want to change this paper for other pieces of paper? What makes their pieces of paper more valuable than this one?
True. Only the
It's
fact that people will take that one and not this one.
exactly. But with a crypto, if I could take the value off of this, give it to back to the people, not sell it to them. I want to make that clear.
So you're backing a crypto with bills of exchange.
Yes,
That's pretty rad.
I know.
Is that something
And the crypto
InPower's working
goes
on?
up. What's that?
Is that something InPower's planning on doing?
Yeah.
I love it. We need more crypto, man, in the world. I believe that.
And then there's nothing like this. There's others that are backed by gold or silver, something hard, but you're limited to the amount that you've got.
Hmm.
We are limited by how much paper and ink we can print.
Yeah.
Think about it. Like if you could just, yeah, I got more gold coming in every day, every day, every day. Would somebody want that crypto that's, yeah, more gold's coming in every day, every
Hmm.
day, every day, and you can track it. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
It'll be transparent. Once we have our database where it's, more dynamic and like we have the database, but it's not only two people can read it.
Yeah.
Uh, you know what I'm saying?
Open source.
Yeah. So, but when you can see where we are with bills at any point in time, that's what your crypto is worth. And you can, you I mean, we got some really cool plans coming up. It's if you were to take like this, a thing in payment for something, and then you looked at the thing that you got the next day and it went up in value, would you want more of those? Yeah. Like I said, you guys think with your centuries of banking and creating all this nonsense, hold my beer. Like we're going to show you how this is
Yeah.
real because God Almighty's on this, and we're taking all the wealth out of your system and giving it back to the people you stole it from.
We're balancing the planet. Have you seen, the debt ticker in America for a $34 trillion of debt? And it just, you can see it running all day and the bottom number is just like a blur. And then it goes up from there. You guys are
Yeah.
going to have a ticker at InPower pretty soon that's going to overtake that.
Yes. We've already. It's simple math. You get four respondents. Our average daily fee is 20,000, so that's 80,000 a day per person sending. And you multiply that out with 1 million people sending at that rate. We reached 30 trillion in 1 year.
Wowza.
Like just do the math. It's not
Yeah.
that difficult, and that's what I'm saying. It's staggering what we can do.
Yeah.
And they can't stop it. They can't pretend it's not there. There's nothing they can do. They can't shoot everybody. They can't blow up Building 7 to get rid of the paper.
Yeah.
They can't find it.
Yeah. That's what makes it so powerful is it really is a movement of the people and just exercising. Like we're not doing anything that's new here. Like we're just using the same exact rules that have been weaponized against us to
Yes,
redeem ourselves from those weapons. That's it.
exactly. That's it. And
Not,
and
not
then
even fighting anyone.
everybody prospers. All the inventions that have been squashed for over the years
Yeah,
can come up.
that's the
We
big
can
one.
yeah, because we can fund all that stuff. We don't need their banks. We're creating the same things that they've been creating for centuries. We're doing it over here,
Yeah,
just not centralized.
right. There's so much liberation that will come from when this turn of events finally takes place where the financial system can no longer be used as this weapon of control. There's so much liberation that will happen for humanity in wake of that, especially as you're talking about allowing technologies and inventions that have been suppressed or medicines, holistic therapies that have been suppressed will finally be able to come to light. And that's where the money thing trickles into everything in our world because
Yes.
we have a medical system that actively creates sickness. We have a financial system that actively creates poverty. We have a political system that actively creates control, and on and on and on. And it's because money is to be had at the expense of people, not to their
Yes.
benefit. It doesn't create money to have a free energy device, to have a cure for cancer, on and on. It creates money to proliferate those things. And so again, it's like the money thing is tied into every web in the matrix. And when we pull
Exactly.
that string, the other strings get pulled with it.
Exactly. And that's why of all the class action suits that happened on smart meters in North America, not one was successful. And I'll tell you the reason why.
Wow.
Not one was heard.
Makes sense.
And this is after a class action suit, you're looking at about $250,000 of a legal team to put it together,
Yeah.
and it gets booted out at the door of the court. No, we're not hearing that. And that's
Wow.
because there's somebody pulling the strings behind there with money.
How corrupt is that? That people can come together to bring a case to court to solve an injustice and pay all that money and then still be told, no, I'm not going to hear that.
Yep,
That should be an obvious sign of the corruption of our legal system, right? It's like anyone who has a complaint that someone else has done harm to me should be heard. That should be an equal right, but
that's
it's not.
right.
It's a commercial right,
Well, this is the thing. So if the pirates are in charge, then that's not going to happen.
right?
You're not going to bring one of the other pirates into the pirate court,
Hmm.
and that's the bottom line.
It literally is a pirate court, right? When you understand the flag laws and how they sew that gold trim around the flag, which is what pirates did. I looked this up, dude, and it blew me away. It's literally what pirates did. It was a pirate code to show what countries' ships they had captured. They would fly those flags with a gold seam around it. Gold meaning like we own you, you know what I mean? And when you know that, like if you study history, I just like history. I'm a history buff. You can learn these things like you would learn any other historical fact. It's proven, it's self-evident. And then you watch a court case and you see a gold trim around the American flag and you're like, "Wait a minute. What is that gold trim doing there?" Like, "Oh, the matrix is being revealed before your eyes."
It's
Just little
right in front
symbols
of you.
everywhere.
Yep, it's right in front of you. Like going the Canada thing is a really good study because a pirate was given, he was the first governor here. They were allowed to make their own laws and enforce them, and they were allowed to have courts. How do you think this went?
How do you think this is going to go? A pirate can create laws, have its own courts. It's not going to go well for you.
No. And that's why, like studying that, and you see, okay, well, that's how it was. It's still the same thing.
Yeah.
We just think it's not, but it definitely is. It's completely corrupt.
It's just a more sophisticated corruption these days,
Yes,
but even more corrupt, actually, in many ways.
way more corrupt. And during my journey, discovering all this commerce, that's when I saw the judges running out of the room. That's the
Hmm.
beginning of this. And so I knew I was onto something. I
Yeah.
thought it was coincidence at first, and then no, okay, this is my fourth time, and now that judge is doing that, and this judge, like it just went on and on and
They
on. Okay,
always
you
run out of the
guys,
building.
yeah, you guys are definitely afraid of whatever it is that I'm doing here. I need to study this more, and that's all I did. Reverse engineered.
Incredible.
Yeah,
I think we talked about your story on our first live, so we won't
yeah.
rehash it here. But I just I could talk about this all day with you, but for the sake of the brevity of this interview, um, how can people get involved? When's the next wave? What are the dates we're looking at to get involved and all that good stuff?
The kickoff is on the 25th, I believe, of this month of February.
Okay, coming up
Oh,
soon.
24th, sorry.
Well, that's
And
the
then
end
the
of the
first,
week.
yeah, it's this week. So then the first actual meeting would be the Monday after that. So that'd be on the 26th. So that's when the wave starts.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can
And
come in late. It's not like,
yeah, what's
you,
the window between the waves that you can actually
uh,
do the
well, the
process?
next wave we'll do in April. So it'll be about every
Okay.
2 to 3 months. Yeah. So, but
That's pretty
even this
quick.
wave, you don't have to be there on day one. Like you can catch
Yeah.
up really quick. Yeah. So it's it's not that you missed it.
Can people do the whole process in like an afternoon if they want? Or I guess there's 3 letters you have to send, so it's
the
takes a bit of
you
time.
you could. It takes a while to get your respondents in, so that's give yourself a week for that. And then yeah, but once you've got that done, you can yeah, and you booked your notary and you got your witnesses, yeah, you can just carry on at your own pace. We have
Yeah.
another section in our site where you can just do it at your own pace. Don't have to be a part of the wave. But people like the wave. They like being around others.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. And you
there's
guys have a great resources for this. Like you guys email, once you join InPower, you email, you start the process and it'll send you an email of here's what you need to do next, and it'll
yeah,
explain it to you. So
yeah.
it's very like it kind of holds your hand through the process because this stuff is rocket science to most people when it comes to law and contracts. So you guys do a great job of helping people out.
Yeah, and we just want to get you through the process, and you can learn as you go. Because everybody starts wherever they are, like you can't be anywhere else, and then you will just start to pick up by just coming to the meetings or Q and
Yeah.
A's, just reading the document itself over and over. You'll go, oh, oh, oh,
Starting to make
and
sense.
yeah. So everybody's a little bit different how they learn, but you will not be the same person 5 months, 6 months from now.
Yeah.
You'll see the world in a different way.
Oh, yes. And that's the feeling you were talking about of getting that letter to the post office. You're standing in line and something in your soul feels that what you're doing has an impact, a ripple effect through the world. That's very much for the positive. And you're also standing on your own power and asserting your power as a child of the king and a child of God to no longer be controlled and manipulated in ways that you don't consent to. I mean, that's a very righteous act to commit.
And it's a lot of it is overcoming fear. We have a lot of fears, and some of them we don't realize are there until you actually have to step over that line. So
Yeah.
a lot of people feel this burden coming off them because they've stepped out of that fear or starting to step out of that fear. It wouldn't be 100%, but it's a big step to do this.
Yeah.
And so for lay people, because this is not their arena. And when they send that document, they go, oh, okay. yeah. Oh, yeah. This is. Oh, I feel. Yeah, yeah. Come on.
Yeah,
Oh, oh. Yeah. It's really fun to watch. And then they
it
start to,
is.
and then they start to watch. They start to realize some of the principles, and they start. Okay, well, I got this bill, and looks. Yeah, this is what he was talking about. And if I sign right here, like, it's just amazing to watch.
Hmm.
People are catching on.
They are, man. I was about to say I'm a part of a group that about 30 people. We meet once a month and we discuss how to endorse bills that we get in the mail, credit cards, loans, you name it. Any bill you get is actually a presentment that is
Yeah.
asking you to do for a contract to do business with them, and so you have to respond in some